Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Plate the State. You might notice that we are not on a farm today, but we are in Augusta. So one thing that you might not know is that about 1 in 5 kids in this state suffer from food insecurity. And if you think about what that looks like with even in one school or one classroom, it's just really heartbreaking. I mean, you know how you feel when you're feeling a little grumpy, when you're hungry. Now think about not a 6, 7, or 8-year-old. But luckily, Maine has just taken an incredible stride in making meals available for all public school students for free. And we're going to be speaking with some of the key players that brought this incredible legislation to light.
Thanks to LL Bean for presenting today's storybook with limited commercial interruption.
I think we don't always know who the hungry children are in schools. Throughout the pandemic, it's been a very moving target who those children are. I was in the cafeteria working at a register, and there was a little boy, maybe 10, 11 years old, at a middle school sitting at a table. He had a lunchbox in front of him, and he wasn't opening it. The line had gone through, all the children had gone through, all children are eating for free, and I'm like, I wonder what is happening with this young man. And so I went to sit down with him and I said, hey, what's going on? And he's like, well, I don't have anything in my lunchbox. His parents had accumulated some meal debt from previous years when school meals were being charged for, and his parents had told him to never get a school lunch because they didn't want to incur any more school debt. And I said, you can get a lunch, you can get everything here. You can go to our salad bar, you can get a choice of entrees and a carton of milk and have your whole meal.
One of the biggest barriers to food access for kids at school is that some kids are expected to pay for school meals while others get those meals for free. So there's sort of this tiered eligibility system to get kids food. So that's the only part of the school day that some kids are expected to pay for. And so the result of all of that is that there's this stigma attached to school meals where they're associated with poverty. You know, if you come from a low-income household, you're eligible for a free school meal. If you are a child from a household that makes just too much to receive a free school meal, but you're still food insecure, you might not have enough money for lunch. That causes some problems. What we see when, you know, some kids are paying and some kids are getting these meals for free, a lot of kids choose not to eat because they don't want to be, you know, seen as the poor kid. And unfortunately, the school cafeteria is often the first time that kids realize that they might be poorer than their friends or that their friends come from a low-income family. And so it's really this kind of like class system that we've created in the cafeteria.
Having grown up in Maine and being a product of the public school system, I think we all know how difficult it is and how burdensome it is for the school and for the parents and the families, and how stigmatizing it is to have to send these forms home, say how much you're making, how much you're earning this year, just to have their kid qualify for free lunch. And the kid being asked for those forms, being asked, do you have the means to pay for a meal or not? Why do we divide kids that way? Why should we?
We provide children with everything that they need for learning. A ride to school by transportation. We provide them with the technology they need, the teaching, the books. We provide them with sports equipment and sports uniforms, and yet before the pandemic we would say, you can have all this, but we're going to charge you for food.
When Full Plates was founded back in 2016, we heard them and we became a part of that conversation. And so we really took every opportunity we could to talk about, school meals for all is an important policy solution. And we were working on lots of other policy changes, sort of small incremental steps towards school meals for all, and always incorporated that into the conversation. And then the pandemic hit. USDA responded to schools switching to remote learning by kind of getting rid of some of these complications, including the tiered eligibility system.
One of the silver linings of the pandemic is that it gave us the opportunity to have a test run of what it would look like to offer meals for free for all children. And what we found is that families embraced it.
You had school staff, school bus drivers, other people from the community delivering meals to the homes of school children who ordinarily would be getting their meal at the school. So it was important. Everybody understood that it was important for kids to eat.
So we saw this happening in practice, we saw that it was working, and all of a sudden it became this new way to feed kids across the country. And so when you just take away all the complication and the judgment and just provide those meals for everybody, more kids eat. There's, everybody's kind of doing this together as a part of the school day, but it was temporary.
I remember learning several years ago that approximately 1 out of 5 children in Maine is food insecure, which means when that child is going to school, they're trying to learn on an empty stomach. I would love it if every family were wealthy enough, well-to-do enough to feed their children 3 healthy meals a day. But those kids are in school a great deal of the day, and why don't we stand up to the plate and feed them? So we went from school lunches, getting rid of free lunch versus reduced lunch versus paid lunch, promoting Maine-grown and Maine-fished and farmed foods in our school cafeterias, to the pandemic, when the federal government stepped in and agreed to pay for school lunches in the schools. And then we said, well, let's pick up the difference and continue that. And let's pay for breakfast as well. These kids get to school very early, and many of them were coming to school without anything in their stomachs. So not being able to wait for lunchtime to get that meal, it seemed important to help kids learn and stay healthy.
One of the things we do with our school gardens is in the fall, when they're harvesting the carrots out of this school garden, my chef and I will go into the classroom and we cook curried carrot soup with them. So they're chopping up the carrots, they're chopping the onion, they're using the immersion blender to blend this curried carrot soup. Because we've involved them in the process, they're like, this is delicious. And it takes away the fear factor of trying something different and really makes them excited. Many school nutrition programs really believe that we're not just providing children with healthy meals, but we're also educating families on ways to eat better. We believe that this whole integrative approach instills in children the desire and the knowledge and the excitement around food and healthy eating to take that into adulthood with their own families.
I think it's a wonderful way for kids to learn how to grow their own food, for kids to understand where food comes from, and for communities to gather, digging in, and school kids and staff and teachers. It's a fun thing to do, and it's a real good learning experience.
When you involve them and make them your partners, and you send recipes home to the families, then you're really making real sustainable change. And it's so important for the wholeness and the wellness and for the educational well-being of all of the children.
Let's feed the kids. It's a very simple measure, a simple goal. And with the kind of food we can grow here in Maine And with fisheries and the abundance of products and produce we have here in Maine, and with greenhouses extending the growing season, we can get this done.